Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry and today we have another board game review. Today I'll be reviewing this game right here, Ivanhoe, designed by Reiner Knizia and published by GMT Games, originally first in the early 2000s. I'm going to set this game up, show you a little bit as to how it plays, and then I'll get back to you and share with you my final thoughts and grades. And this is what the game looks like set up. So we have all of these chips right here in a supply in 5 different colors. You have green, yellow, blue, purple, and red. You have a deck of cards nice and shuffled up. This is the main component of the game. You deal 8 cards to each player as a starting hand. I am simulating a 2-player game, although the game accommodates anywhere from 2 to 5 players. So the cards are basically in 5 different suits corresponding with the 5 different colors of the chips right here: purple, green, yellow, blue, and red. And you also have these white cards, which are wild cards called helpers that you can play along with any other color. So not all of these suits are created equal, but on each round we are playing or engaging in a tournament which corresponds with one of these colored suits. And the starting player chooses which tournament or what color of the tournament we will be participating in. And every time a player wins a tournament in a respective color, they earn the color of that chip. They earn that chip of that color. Now, the purple tournaments are very valuable because whenever you win a purple tournament, you could either win the purple chip or choose to earn another chip of a different color, which you don't currently have because you could only have one of each of the colored chips. The first player to have all 5 different colored chips in their possession is the winner. In a 4 or 5 player game, it would be the first player to have any 4 of the 5 colored chips who would be declared the winner. As I mentioned earlier, not all the suits are created differently, are created equal. Some of the differences are the greens. The numbers in the green suit are all the same. They're all 1s, right? Because every suit has a different range of colors. And in the back of the rule book here, you can see the distribution of the different numbers among the suits and how much multiples they have of each given number. That's a very helpful little aid for making decisions. The purples are the most volatile. They have some of the highest valued numbers. All right, so with that being said, we're going to simulate a few turns and see how it goes. So this player, the first thing you do on your turn is you draw a card, and this player here is going to choose to engage in the green. He has a few wilds to help him. He feels pretty confident because he has 2. And on a player's turn, when they're entering a tournament or starting a tournament, or on any given turn that they're participating or contributing to a tournament, they can play as many cards as they want. You have to start with at least 1 if you're going to engage, but you can place as many as you want. And the advantage of placing as many as you want is that you would want to maybe intimidate your opponent from even engaging further into this tournament. But in this case, I feel really confident. I don't need to do any mind games. I'm only going to play 1 card with the player on the left, and he's going to start a tournament of green. Now, you got to make sure that at the end of your turn, you have the highest value within that tournament, within that colored suit, of all the players on the table, or else you cannot remain in the tournament. So this person here has 1, which is currently the highest, so he's fine. Now we're going to move to the player here on the right, and this player has no cards in green. He does have this 1 wild card, which he can contribute, but here's the thing. The wild cards, even the wild cards in a green tournament only count as 1. So this is only 1. And again, remember the rule: to remain in a tournament, you have to have the highest value currently on the table. You're not tied for the highest. You have to have sole possession of the highest value, and that would not be the case with that card. So this player is just going to take the L. They're going to back out and give the victory in the green tournament to the player on the left. And because he's won the green tournament, he earns himself a chip. Also, the winner of the tournament is the starting player for the next tournament, which means they choose the color in which the next tournament will take place. So this person here will start the turn again by drawing a card, feeling really good about green, but again, you cannot win a second green chip. These will be helpful in the future to prevent other players from winning the green chip. So instead, he's going to place this blue 4 right here. And if he wanted to, he could add some of these wilds. Now, very important with the maiden, the squires, which are your 2 and 3 wilds, you can play as many of them as you want within a given tournament. The maidens, which are very valuable, the number 6s, you can actually only play 1 maiden per tournament. Another big thing about a maiden that you need to keep in mind is that if you ever lose a tournament in which you engaged or contributed a maiden to, you will lose. You will have to give up a chip in your possession. So that could be very, very detrimental. So you want to think twice about that decision. All right, so this player has played the 4. He has the highest value of anybody on the table, the only value. Now this player, if they're going to engage, and they feel very confident about blue, if they're going to engage, they have to play higher than the previous player. So he's going to play this 4 and this 2 to give him a total of 6. He could have played more, but he wants to see, test the waters, to play a total of 6, and now he currently has the highest value. So this player does not know what's in the other player's hands, but he does know that he has some help from some wilds if push comes to shove, and he'd rather make this guy sweat a little bit. So he will play this 5 right here. And now he brings up his total to 9. So for this player to surpass him, he's going to have to play at least a value of 4 higher, and he is. He's going to play this 4 right here. All right, so now this player will go back, and if they want to keep on going, they're going to have to contribute their wilds. He's starting to realize that things are getting really tricky here. He could add a 2 to surpass him by 1, but if this guy has any more cards, wild or blue, he'll be in big trouble. He doesn't want to invest this green, this 6, and risk losing his green chip, but he's gone so far. You know what? He's going to back out. And what happens is when you back out, you actually pick up your cards. You do not lose your cards. Only the winner of a tournament will discard his or her cards. So this player wins, discards these cards, and now draws a blue chip. And now they're the starting player, and they get to draw a card and choose the color of the next tournament. And they're going to choose red and play this 4 right here. This player here has only 1 red, so if he wants to engage, he's going to have to place this wild card here and make it a total of 6. And now this player will play this red here, make it a total of 7. And the only option left for this player would be to play this red 6. However, again, if they lose, they're going to regret it, because then they'll have to cough up their one and only chip that they have right here. So this player, again, will make the wise and humble move of backing off. This player will win, must discard their red cards, and draw a red chip. And they are 2/5 of the way towards a victory. And this is pretty much how the game plays. You keep on playing round after round. It's definitely a little bit more interesting if you have a 3rd, maybe even a 4th player. 2 players feels really good, really tactical, but there is a little bit of swinginess, and the luck of the draw always plays a factor in these kind of games, right? So that's it. That's how the game plays. The winning condition, again, is the first player to get 5 of these different colored chips. Now we're going to get to my final thoughts and grades. So that's how we play Ivanhoe. And this style of game, this card, tactical back and forth type of card game, is something that Reiner Knizia was really focusing on and working on during this time period. It was between that and auction bidding, right? Those were the 2 main mechanisms in the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s that Reiner Knizia prioritized and focused his work on. And this game definitely gets lost in the shuffle with lots of these style of games, and for good reason. It's not as good as games like Battleline and or Stadentaten and Lost Cities. It's not quite as good as these games, or even games like Scarab Lords, right? But it does have a place within his repertoire. Now let's get straight to my grades. First, let's start with components. I'm going to give this a B-. This is GMT Games. They're not known for their component quality. The fact that this is a simple card-based game gave them less opportunity to mess up, right? So that's really cool. But, you have the thick card stock. GMT cards are always very hard to shuffle because they're very, very thick, which has some value to it. But the artwork and the graphic design is always very plain, always very basic, and quite frankly, subpar. You have these tiddlywinks, these small little chips. They're okay, they're not nothing to write home about. They get the job done, I guess. I think I would have preferred maybe even a token over these chips, maybe some cubes to represent the scoring. But that's how GMT did it. And of course, you have a colorless rule book, right? But that's irrelevant. That's besides the point. But yeah, because it's a simple card game, how many amazing components do you need? So because of that, I'm going to give it a B-. Now let's get straight to theme. And I'm actually going to give this a C+. Reiner Knizia is not renowned for his integration of themes in his board games. But this is a simple card game. Card games in general are not very immersive thematic experiences, right? Card games tend to feel like card games. You might appreciate or enjoy the theme that's pasted on them, but more often than not, they don't feel like very thematically integrated experiences. But for the theme that was he was trying to present, or at least the theme that perhaps maybe GMT, developed, the idea of knights competing in a tournament, and you have all these different colored cards, and they all correspond to a different type of tournament. And it makes sense, right? You've got the hand-to-hand combat, which is represented by the green suit, and because of that, all the cards are weak. They're all ones, because in hand-to-hand combat, you can't do nothing amazing or over the top. And then you got all the way to the jousting, and the jousting is the most challenging of all the tournaments, and because of that, it has a wide range of numbers, and you could really deal some damage with some really high-ranked numbers that you can throw out there. So from that perspective, the fact that the cards were given attention to, you also have some special action cards, which I actually haven't played with. I didn't show in the little playthrough, but you have these different action cards that can be thrown in the deck, and they are somewhat thematic, right? They're kind of tied into the whole theme of knights and jousting and competing in tournaments and what have you. So again, based on that fact and the fact that it's a card game, I'm going to give this a C+ for theme. Now, as far as gameplay is concerned, I'm actually going to give this a solid B. This is not an amazing game. It's not going to rock your world. It's probably not going to compete with, your top 20, 50, 100 games of all time, maybe even. But it's a solid game that if you have room in your collection, and the fact that it's a card game, right? I do keep it still in this box, but eventually if I ever feel like I'm running out of space, I could just take the cards, pack them up, either consolidate them with another game, or just buy a smaller card box to stuff them into. The point is, for what it is, a quick, light game, it gets the job done. And the cool thing is, unlike lots of these other Reiner Knizia games, this is a multiplayer game. You can play 2 to 5 players if that's something you're interested in. And then let's get to novelty factor. I'm going to give this a C+, because there's lots of things in this game that Reiner Knizia has already done. The color-coded cards with numerical values. He's done, right? The difference in this, as opposed to the others, is that in his other games, all colors are created equal, right? When you got Battleline, when you've got Lost Cities, all colors have the same numerical values found within them, Celtis even, right? But here, no, all colors are not created equal. So there is a discrepancy between purple to blue, blue to green. So those are things that you have to factor in your calculations and in your strategies even. So I will give him that. That was neat. That was interesting. He did something very similar to his Taj Mahal game where players have to have a majority. But in this case, what he did was you can't remain in the tournament unless you're currently in the lead or have the highest value on the table. So that's something to factor in before you even engage, right? It prevents, in some of these kind of games, players can kind of engage a little bit just to push the threshold and push the envelope and challenge the other players who might still win the contest, let's say. But in this game, you can't even really contend, because why would you waste those cards? It doesn't matter if you can't waste those cards, because if you can't surpass the person, it's irrelevant. It's almost like an auction. So that's something that he's kind of thrown into this style of card game. He kind of threw an undercover auction into it, right? So there's that. Also, there's no tableau building or progression in this game. No engine building of any kind. In lots of these other games, like the Charlemagne even, Lost Cities, and Battleline, these cards remain in front of you for the remainder of the game, and you build upon them, right? So there's this long-term strategy, right? As opposed to Ivanhoe, which is very tactical. It's all tactics in this game, because every round represents a unique and different tournament that will never be repeated, right? So there is that. So you know, the players who lost the tournament, they get those cards right back in their hand, which is a benefit, but they no longer have it on their tableau. And then the winners of the tournaments, they have to discard those cards. They're gone. They no longer serve them, right? So that's something to factor in. So yeah, you've got that. These are all one-off battles from round to round. And again, that makes it feel a little bit different, even though he's incorporating lots of ideas and picking from different places within his own repertoire, which is why I'm not going to give it a higher grade, but I'm going to give it a solid C+ as far as novelty factor. It doesn't revolutionize anything or innovate anything, but it feels like its own game in that regard. And then finally, overall, I'm going to give this a solid B-. Like I said, nothing necessarily to write home about, but if you're looking for a small card game in your collection that feels a little bit like some of these other games, Battleline and Lost Cities, but plays or accommodates higher player counts, right? 2 to 5 players, then this is a game that you might want to consider. And that's it for today's board game review. Thank you so much for joining us here. Comment down below and tell me what you think about Ivanhoe. Perhaps you've played it before. Maybe you're not even interested in this type of game. I'm interested in reading what you have to say. This is Harry saying take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.